Hey everyone, and hello, and good day to all my fellow AW warriors out there. This video is for you guys. It's been a long time since I've made any videos, and over the year or so, not just because of the pandemic or whatnot, but I really haven't had or felt like I've had much to talk about lately. Lately there's been a lot of talk on the forum about how to mix in a certain way. And there's been a few people wondering, can they mix in surround sound on the AW4416? And so I thought, hell, there's something I can actually do a video on, because I have in the past actually made surround sound mixes with this unit. And so it's something I feel like I want to give kind of an in-depth video for you guys to watch on how to do it. And hopefully it's something you guys could actually utilize if you really want to go that route and make a full surround sound style mix. Now, before I get started, there's a few things I do want to say that I want to give thanks to the people on the AW forum. First and foremost, everybody has to thank Harry, because he keeps that place up and running. While a lot of other people that were on there when I first joined years ago, who were administrators and moderators, they've just moved on to other things. Who knows what's going on in their lives and what they're doing. But Harry's kept it going. He's been really great at archiving a lot of information and even software that he can get his hands on for us to use to be able to continue using this 20-plus-year-old machine. And there's a lot of other users on there whose names I forget at the moment. I'm sorry, but they've actually provided technical know-how, technical specs about how to not just disassemble this unit, but to do repair work, where to source parts, and do all the conversion stuff. And of course, you can find the information about how to do that on the files section in the AW group or on Harry's website, where he's actually curated and collected a lot of those files to keep archived so we have access to them. I'd also like to give a shout out to Benny Badman. He's actually been doing a lot for us lately, not just was the AEW Miner program, which is great because it gives us a whole new piece of software that we can use to back up our hard drives on the AW4416 and even from CD-ROMs, and even right back to the systems on the computers. Without having to go through the CD-ROM deck, we can just go right through the hard drive to do it all, and it works so much faster than the older programs that were out there, such as AWExtract and AWare. I also want to give a thanks to Silver Bear. Silver Bear has been a member of the forum for a very long time, and we don't hear from him all that often, but Silver Bear has given me a lot of support in the past and even recently over things I do. And because of what he's done in his past and where he comes from, his support, his recognition actually means a bit more to me. I also want to give a shout out and thanks to Tim Howitt. Tim Howitt's been a member of this forum for quite a while, possibly as long as I have, maybe longer. Tim has helped me on occasions to do vocals for my own work on pieces of music that I just could not do the vocals to. I know my voice is my weakest part when it comes to music. I can play drums, I can play guitar, I can play the piano a little bit, but when it comes to singing, I'm very limited with what I can do there. Tim first stepped in when I was doing a cover of Megadeth's Holy Wars from their Rust in Peace album. And he heard what I was doing. He asked to let him do the vocal track for it, and he did extremely well. And Tim, I'm sorry, I still haven't got it finished up yet. It's been several years, but I haven't had time yet to really sit down and try to learn how to play in the style of Marty Friedman. Although recently I have sat down and tried to pick apart the leads, and I'm starting to get a better idea of what the notes really are. And I'm finding that a lot of information about it on YouTube is wrong. Anyway, Tim's also stepped in and helped me out when I asked him to do vocals on another track that I did just a couple of years ago. Maybe so. I think it's been 2 years. I can't remember. It's Conflicts of Man. And it's a piece of music that I fiddled around with, kind of, recorded as a demo, just messing around on an old 4-track back in 2000. 20 some years later, I decide, well, I got nothing else going on at the moment. Let's try out this new recording system, and we'll just use this piece and see what we can do with it. And I made a song out of it, and I wrote lyrics and had a melody in mind, but there was no freaking way that I was going to be able to sing it. So I reached out to Tim, and Tim said, yeah, sure, he'll give it a try. I did up just like a little rough scratch track for vocal work, so he can hear what the basic idea I have in mind for vocal phrasing and melody was. And I just let him have at it. I said, go for it. Your show from here. And he did a great job. I could not have expected any better from anybody else. So Tim Howitt, I thank you very much for that. Hopefully you're seeing your name on some of those, PROs that are out there, like ASCAP or whatever, linked to this song, because I did put your name in there, especially through the distributor, which is... I use DistroKid, and I remember they had me send out an email to you about that. Hopefully you got that. Anyway, there's other people I'd also like to mention here. Adequoy Adams. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name right. I've only read it. Anyway, Adequoy does a lot of electronic music, and he's actually figured out a way to set up the AW4416 to be integrated within that type of music. So he's a great help for a lot of other artists out there who are doing that kind of music who got this machine. There's a lot of other people that I did want to mention, but right now, I'm sorry guys, all your names and everything are escaping me. But ultimately, it was these people and a lot of others who have kind of kicked around the idea of doing surround in the AW4416. And is it possible? And I want to say that yes, it is possible. However, let it be known that the AW4416, as well as many other multi-track recorders, all-in-one self-contained units, were never designed with the intention of recording and mixing in surround sound. That being said, though, because of the flexibility offered by the AW4416's mixing section, it will let us mix in surround sound with some creative ingenuity. First thing you got to do, though, is you got to figure out how many tracks you're going to need to make this work and what type of surround you're going to use. The AW4416, being that it's a hardware unit, is a finite system. You only have 16 tracks available to you to play back at once. You only have 44 channels to work with. You only have 20 buses to use. So you got to make the system work within the limitations of the machine, and that's it. You also need to decide what type of surround you want to do. There are really only two types of surround sound. There's matrix encoded surround formats, and then there is the discrete surround formats. The matrix encoded surround format is a surround sound setup that is heavily reliant upon the quality of your surround sound receiver to properly understand what is going on in the signal and be able to steer the audio to the proper speakers that you intend it to be to. Because it only uses a stereo input. That's it. And it gives you at least a 4-channel output. You get your left, your front center, your right, and then your rear. Discrete surround, you have one individual audio track per channel. So each speaker has its own individual audio track. Each one of them has its pros and cons, especially with which one to use on a system that you're going to use to mix with, like this AW4416, or a system that's actually set up to work as a surround sound mixer. But for all intents and purposes, the easiest setup to do with the AW4416 is the matrix encoded surround. After all, the AW is already set up to mix in stereo, and it has the ability to give you phase controls. And so you need to understand a little bit about how the surround system works for the matrix encoded surround. It is nothing more than a new twist, even though it's over 20 years old technology, on a very old technique. It has nothing to do with anything more than just the difference between audio phasing between left and right channels and delay. The receiver itself, for as far as I can tell, it basically is looking for differences and similarities in left and right channel for frequency, waveform, amplitude, and phase. And depending on how things are different or things are the same, it will steer your audio between the four speakers. And the way this system is, the rear channel is always mono. Now you can have a 5.1 setup where you have two speakers in the back like I got here, but the rear channel will still just play in mono. However, some newer setups will let you pan a bit between the left and right speaker, but it's still just a mono signal. You can't run two separate signals to the left rear and to the right rear on this kind of setup. It just doesn't work that way. And in reality, it really is only a 3-channel setup. The rear channel is actually a faux channel. It's fake. It's phony. It works off how the circuitry is designed in the receiver. So you really only have a left, a center, and a right. And I'll explain what I mean here. Let's just say you have a single monotone coming through your left and right channel. 1 kilohertz sine wave, so to speak. Everything is equal on left and right. The receiver will steer the audio from your left channel or the right channel and make it come directly out of your center channel, your center speaker. Nothing out of the rear channel. The thing is, though, that the signal is actually being sent to both the circuitry that goes to the front channel amp and the rear channel amp. Now, here's how it works. Your standard mono signal is going to have a phase where one side is positive and the other side is positive. When it gets sent to the front channel, those two sides are summed together, at which point they add up, and then it goes through an attenuator to bring the volume down a little bit from what happens through the summing, and it plays out of your front speaker. That same signal is also being sent to the rear channel. In the rear channel, though, one side of those two outputs is going through a circuit that inverts the phase 180 degrees out. And then it sums them together. When they sum together, they are now, one positive, one negative. They cancel each other out. And so you get no sound out of your rear speakers then. So if you want a sound to come out of your rear speaker, the producer, the artist, whomever, they have to send the initial signal coming into the receiver with one side being positive phase and the other side being 180 degrees out of phase, so negative phase. So in this case, when that signal is being sent to the front speaker, it sums together, cancels out, and you get no audio. But the signal going to the back speaker, once again, there's a side that goes through the phase inversion circuit, which now flips both sides so they're in phase. Then it can be summed together, and now you got audio coming out of the back. All right, limitations of this system, though, there's a few of them. The old Dolby setups, the old Dolby manuals for Dolby Pro Logic, the original surround sound that I was first made aware of, they said that the rear channel needs to have a frequency bandwidth between 100 hertz to 7 kilohertz, nothing more. I don't know if that's simply because when we're watching a movie or whatever, the audio is representative of what we're looking at on the screen. And so all the detail is up there. And what we may hear out of the back behind us is generally ambience. So it's not going to have the detail. It also may be, though, that a larger bandwidth, a wider bandwidth, would create more crosstalk in the audio signal. And then another limitation is exactly what I'm bringing up there, crosstalk. As we discussed, the way it works is the receiver is trying to look for the differentiation between the phase and amplitude, delay, and waveform, and steer things properly around. But when you're doing just audio, you have all this information crammed together on just 2 tracks. And you're going to have places where your frequencies are overlapping, your phases are overlapping. So the receiver is going to have a little bit more difficulty trying to separate out what goes where. In which point you're going to get crosstalk. Your left and right speakers are going to end up bleeding into your center speaker possibly. Left and rights are also going to be bleeding into the rear channels. These are things you're just going to have to deal with as the producer because of the limitations of how this type of surround sound works. Because of the same situation, you may not hear as much stereo width out of the system as you would like. The pros, though, the plus side of it, this system is the easiest to deal with. It's also the most functional across different platforms because you are essentially still creating a stereo mix. So it can play on any stereo device. It can play in surround sound devices. It can play on any kind of format, whether it's tape, CD, digital streaming. It can be uploaded online and still play back properly. It can still even play back for the most part properly on mono systems like a cell phone, with the exception of that you won't hear the surround channel information. All right, so to set the AW up as a surround sound mixer for matrix encoded surround, okay, we're going to set it up like it's brand new. So what you do, let's say you have at least 2 tracks still available for recording. This is going to be the easiest setup. What you do is you set up like channel 15 and 16. You bring them up to 0. So they're right on the money there. And then, of course, you can either stereo link them or just group them together, fader group. If you stereo link them, which I've done mostly in the past, they work okay, but when you invert the phase on one channel, you get this weird kind of issue where one side will show more volume and more output than the other side. If you just use fader grouping instead, then you can invert the phase on one side and that issue doesn't happen. But at the same time, that means you have to go through and set up each channel individually. They won't work together in tandem. Anyway, for simplicity, I'll just link them together, stereo pair, so you can see what it looks like. You get 16 or 15 and 16 there, and just invert the phase on one of them. Okay? Now it's set for surround, but this is not where we stop. We also want to go to the delay channel right here. It's on. And you want to set it up to delay between 10 to 20 milliseconds. You can play with this to figure out what works best for you. But doing this is what will help you separate your front channel from your rear channel. And it just works off the principle of the Haas effect. But now, this guy is ready to receive surround. All we got to do is arm the tracks over here. And then on our recorder tracks, we'll say which are any of these. We'll say that all these channels here are going to be our mix channels. And we'll say this is guitar. And because I'm a rock guy, I like rock music. So with guitar, we're going to transfer that all the way to left. This is the other rhythm guitar. So it goes all the way to the right. This is the lead guitar, stays center. This is bass, stays center. This is lead vocal, stays center. Let's say this is harmonies. We'll put harmonies like this. And then we'll say this is drums, a full submix of drums, so left and right. And then this one here is keyboard. Well, okay, so the way I got it all set up, the guitars are going to come out of the left and right front channels. The bass, the vocals, and the lead guitar are going to come out of the center channel. The harmonies are going to come blended between left and right and the center. And the drums even though they're panned hard left and right, it'll already be submixed so that things like the kick and the snare will come out of the center channel. The toms will pan from one side to the other. The cymbals will pan from one side to the other. I won't have to do anything with that to try and make it all work out right. But the keyboard track, let's say I want this track to come out of the surround. So in this case, I'm going to turn the stereo bus off, and I'm going to turn on the routers, the 7 and 8 monitor recorder buses, to transfer this channel to 15 and 16. So it is going to have to be put in record mode when you're doing this and record directly to the surround channels. And that is the basic setup for how to do this kind of mixing in surround using the matrix surround format. If you wanted to have an LFE channel to play with, you can just put it on another track, say like right here. You can just arm that. But of course, the LFE channel will have to be recorded on a separate pass then if you want all your stuff to go in it. Because in this case, the LFE channel on track 14 would end up being sent to bus 6. And if you're panned all the way to left, you're not going to get any sound from your monitor channel through bus 6 to your LFE channel. You don't really have to do that because on a matrix encoded surround, all your audio information that falls below a certain threshold of a certain frequency is going to be sent to your LFE channel, which is basically just going to be your subwoofer, okay? The thing with setting up a specific LFE channel is that you can high pass all your other channels in the mix, have the mix sent directly to your LFE channel, and low pass it, and then you can use compression or other EQ, whatever you like, to make sure that it works better on all kinds of systems. So that is your basic setup for how to set this thing up as a matrix format surround. You have your standard front mix channels, which are going to be just sent directly out through the stereo master bus as always. And then you have your surround channel, which is going to be capturing audio that you turned off your master stereo bus from and send it out through your monitor buses, recorder buses, to these two channels, which would operate as your surround. What about the surround effects? There's only a few of them that are really necessary to talk about because everything else can just be done within the system pretty easy. The one thing is the swirling effect, where your sound comes from all around you. Okay? Let's say we want our lead guitar right here. This will be the lead guitar. We want this thing to actually, for some reason, play during a guitar solo. It sweeps around us all the way around, so for some kind of cool effect. And we're going to start that on the left channel. So what you do is you got your stereo master bus on, and you set up an auto mix. Your auto mix during playback is going to start you out with full left pan. Now, as you pan through to the right at whatever speed seems appropriate for you, it's going to pan from your left speaker to your center speaker and then over to your right speaker. Once you get to your right channel, or all the way pan to the right, this is what you do. You will go into your channel library, and you will have something else already set up that does this. It's going to turn off your stereo master bus and turn on buses 7 and 8. Now, the signal is being sent directly to channels 15 and 16 in this case. Since you're still pinned all the way to the right, your sound is still going to come out of your right front speaker. But as you start panning back to the left now at the same speed, your signal is now going to fade to the back channel, when you get to mono, and then fade back up to your front left channel. Now, if this is an old surround receiver that's using just plain Dolby Pro Logic or an equivalent from a competitor, It's just going to be a direct fade from your right channel to the rear and then back up to the front. If this is a receiver that has Dolby Pro Logic 2 or later, or the equivalent from a competitor like DTS, who I actually prefer DTS over Dolby, then it will actually fade from your right front speaker back to the right rear speaker, and then cross over to the left rear speaker, and then fade back up to the left front speaker. You will have to record this on channels 15 and 16 at this pass for this surround effect. And then when you go through the playback system to do your final output, your playback or mix down onto your stereo master bus, just turn the recorder tracks off. Leave everything else alone. Just leave your auto mix alone. Just don't record now. Just hit play. Another effect for surround is the flyby effect. That's where audio comes up from your front speaker, and it sounds like something's coming towards you, and then goes behind you. That effect is basically accomplished by having the audio come up, fade up in the front, and then just a bit later, the audio starts fading up in the rear speaker, and then they match where everything's supposed to be in the middle. Then the audio dips out from the front speaker and starts fading away slowly in the rear speaker. So it looks something like this. We'll go back to this channel here, which would be our lead guitar channel. And what you would do is set it up so that you do an auto mix where you come up slowly and then down. Done. Just like that. And then you're going to do a second pass that's going to be set up for your surround. So your first auto mix, stereo bus will be on. You come up slowly to the middle, then down really fast. Then the second pass through, the stereo bus is off, buses 7 and 8 are turned on, and you're recording to track 15 and 16 in this case. And just a bit later in time, you bring this up this will be the surround channel. You'll bring it up more quickly and then slowly fade it out. And the idea is that at the point you reach 0, both your original auto mix and the recorded pass for your surround mix will meet up at the same time. Now, the AW4416 also offers a variety of effects that you can use that will give you surround sound capabilities. One is going to be your reverb effects. These guys are going to use phasing, basically your differentiation. So anyway, your reverb effects are already going to give you some surround ambience because they use phasing to give you that width. Other effects you could use are going to be like a flanger, rotary works. I believe this one, the modulated filter. Those three guys, you can set their parameters up so that they end up giving you that swirl effect in surround, in this matrix surround, because they work in the stereo field and they cycle the phasing around on the channels. And when you play it back in a receiver that's set up to play back in a matrixed surround format, it will give you that swirled effect where it comes from like far left again, then make its way all the way around to the right, and then to the back right, and then to the back left, and then back up to the front left. And as long as you keep it on, it'll just keep doing that. But again, you have to play with your parameters to get everything to set up right, so it will do that. One more though, surround effect. Like when you're watching a movie and they have something like a voice that comes in, like a narrated voice or a mystical, magical guy, and the sound just comes all around you while he's talking. You can do that effectively with the AW. As we've seen before, you would have your track here. We would use a vocal track, which is going to be this guy here. What we do, we set it up so it comes out the stereo bus, but we'd also turn on buses 7 and 8. They'll go to tracks 15 and 16. They're set up to record. And these guys are delayed 10 to 20 milliseconds. So it's going to be something that gets put out through the main master bus system, which is on here. 10 to 20 milliseconds later than the audio coming out here. This will make it so that the phase differentiations don't cancel each other out. Because if you look at this channel here, it's a normal phase. So you go to your surround channels, and the left channel is reversed phase. So that'll mean if these two were equally lined up, your left channel is going to get canceled out. Only the right channel will play. You get nothing out of surround. So you put them out of sync by 10 to 20 milliseconds. And again, you play around with that, see what works best for you. But you put them out of sync, and this will let the two different channels do their thing on the receiver. You'll get your front vocal channel here coming out of the front. You'll get your surround channel also coming out of the back. But now, what about your left and right? In that case, you can use your effects. You can go into your effects library, and you can set it up with like a stereo delay. And turn your delays so they're way down. Just maybe, a few milliseconds on each side. And they can be close, or you can set them up so there's differentiation between them. Say like, I got the left at 27.6, so let's make the other one 10 point something. 10.3, that works. And then feedback, 0 feedback. Because you don't want the delay to keep repeating. All this is to create width and fill out the sound. So this will essentially give you your front, back, and your left and right with no coloration to the sound whatsoever outside of what the effect itself does. Make for a big, wide, booming sound of just a single, piece of audio. You can also use this guy, dual pitch, because this guy, not only can you control feedback, you can control pan, where it goes, delay, you can control all that, volume output for each one, but you can also adjust the pitch so it's just slightly out of pitch compared to your front and rear channel. And that will help give the perceived effect of differentiation and a wide, powerful field off of just a single audio input in this surround format. So that's it. It's really simple. How to do this in a matrix style surround format. But what if you don't have access to an extra channel because all these channels are already being used up for recording? If that's the case, that's when you start using your auxiliaries. And for this guy, it's really easy. You just set up a cable that jumps between your digital stereo out to your digital stereo in over here. Okay? And you go into your setup menu, if I remember correctly, and you set that up to be output of, like, say, auxiliary 1 and 2. And then on the input side, we're going to set up inputs 1 and 2 as digital stereo, left and right, left. And then we're going to go into our auxiliaries. Under routing, tab pair bus, we're going to pair up auxiliaries 1 and 2. That way, we can move auxiliary 1 up and then switch to 2 and it's up. Pull 2 down, switch to 1, it's down. Okay, so we only have to mess with one fader to do this. Then we're going to go to our input channels, 1 through 16. You can stereo link them again if you want, or you can put them under the fader grouping. And if you don't know where that is, fader grouping, it's under EQ. Push EQ, fader group tab. You have 4 selections you can make. This is going to be our surround channel, so pan left and right, invert the phase on one side, and give it a delay of 10 to 20 milliseconds. I'll just put it right there at 15. Why not? Now, this is going to be your surround channel. So, in this scenario, you're not recording anything. So if you got your, let's say, a vocal channel right here on track 3, you keep it set up like this, and we'll turn our you go ahead and turn your buses off to your auxiliaries. And you can turn those up to full output. And so if you want to have the vocals just be up front, you leave it pan center. Pan to the left will give you left channel. Pan to the right will give you right channel. If you want surround, leave it dead center. Turn off the stereo bus. Turn on your auxiliary buses. Now it's coming out of the surround channel. Okay? So if you want your effect where you have that swirl effect coming around, it's similar as before, except now you're just going to be switching off between the buses on the auxiliaries instead of switching the buses up here to go to a recorder channel. You would start your pan out, say left again, pan all the way to the right, go into your library, change your settings over that you already have stored. It'll turn off your stereo bus. It'll turn on your auxiliary buses. And now you're in your back channel, but you're still far right on the front left, so that's where it's playing out of. And then you start panning to the left again, and now it's going to pan from your front right to the rear right, left rear, up to the left front. Then you go back into your channel view menu, change your settings back to normal, where your stereo bus is on and your auxiliary buses are off, and you're back to where you started. You can keep doing this as many times as you want. Now, if you want to do the flyby effect now, using this method, you can actually set up a different group of channels. So, in this case, we're going to go into the setup menu, and we're going to tell that channel 4 is also going to receive digital stereo left. Okay? But now channels 5 and 6 are going to receive digital stereo left and digital stereo right. So now we're going to put channel 4 up, and we can go ahead and link these two. And now to create the flyby effect, in this case, we would go ahead and turn off the digital stereo output. And we turn on, well, just the stereo bus, I should say. And we turn on the auxiliary buses. But in this setup, this will also turn off this set of surround channels, so we don't hear them. And in this case, it'll turn on these 3 channels now that we can hear. So in this case, the flyby would be really easy. You just push up slowly and then bring this up, and then they come up together and then down. And that's it. Then once that's done, revert back to your original channel setup. These 3 will be turned off. This will be on. And the stereo bus on your monitor track will be on, but the auxiliary buses will be off. And that's how you create those effects. And the same thing as far like the full encompassing effect with the audio coming all around you for just a single piece of audio like a vocal is done the same way. You have your main track up front. You turn on your auxiliaries to come in and work on these 2 tracks, which is your surround channel. And you also have an effect coming out that'll you use either your delay or your pitch shift with its delay to create that kind of effect. So essentially, that's how you create the surround sound effect in the matrix format on the AW4416. Now, out of all the effects that I've also shown you, you can still do other effects that like the 3-channel delay, left, center, right, or you can use the stereo chorus, the symphonic, to all give you some kind of surround sound effect. Whether you have like that 3-channel delay bouncing around from your front and left and right and center speakers, or the front, left, and right and rear speakers. You can have the chorus set up so that it kind of fills out the sound more, the symphonic sound to give you more. All this stuff you can put in any one of those channels just through busing and using the auxiliaries. What if you want to use a discrete surround? Let's talk about that. So let's go ahead and talk about discrete surround. Discrete surround, as I said earlier, is simply an audio track for each individual speaker. Now, the most common surround format that I know of is going to be a 5.1 channel. Of course, newer stuff like I have here at the studio is 7.2 channels, and I've seen there's places that have over 12 channel surround setups. But the AW is, of course, a finite system. It's hardware based, so you only have 20 buses to work with. Only 8 of those are auxiliary buses. So in a discrete surround, we run into some complications, and we're going to have to actually deal with them if we want to go this route. First and foremost, you need a stem recorder, at least 6 channels for a 5.1 surround. You can use the AW as a stem recorder if you have the tracks open, but that limits you to only having 10 tracks available to work with for mixing. But let's say your stem recorder, 6 channels, is going to be these guys right here. Of course, you would arm them all, and what you would do with all the rest of these guys is you would bus them over to where you want them to be. But how to set the buses up is where the problem comes in. The bus system on the AW4416 is set up for a stereo system. Your buses are left and right. And here's what I mean is that you have bus 3 here. That's going to be panned all the way to the left to get to bus 3. You want bus 4 next to it, you got to pan all the way to the right to get to bus 4. You can leave your pan dead center, but then you're only getting half the signal to either of those buses, right? So when you're looking at this, how are you gonna set it up? Is this gonna be your left channel, center channel, right rear, left rear, and your subwoofer, your LFE channel? You can set it up that way, and in doing so, you can blend between these 2 channels, and you can blend between these 2 channels, and you can possibly blend between these channels and those channels right there. But you can't blend between 11 and 13 in this case, which would be you can't blend left and right. And just miss the center channel. You can't everything that's on a left channel bus, which would be 11, 13, and 15, you can't blend to. You can't blend to 12, 14, and 16 because they're all right channel buses. You can turn them all on and then get equal volume out of all sides, but you can't blend to where it's a nice balance between one side or another. So it's positioned somewhere in between. This problem becomes apparent when you try to do some of the surround effects, like the spinning effect. If you start out on your left channel, you can pan it all the way to the right to your center channel. And then you have to switch your bus system. So now that it's going to be bus 4 and 5 instead of 3 and 4 in this case, to pan all the way left again to get to your right channel. Then you're going to switch so it's just bus 5 and 6 and pan all the way to the right to go to your right rear. And then switch your bus system again to 6 and 7 and pan all the way left to go to your left rear. But then here's where it comes up screwy. How do you jump back to your left front? If you just turn the bus on, it's just going to be equal volume between your left rear speaker and left front. It won't have that nice fade that we want. And of course, your LFE channel, channel 16, in this case, which would be bus 8, only signals that are coming through from the right pan, panning all the way to the right, are going to make it to there. Far left pan won't make it to there. So if you want that, you're going to have to do a separate pass on the recording it. So to get around this, we actually need to build a virtual joystick in the AW4416. Because on a surround mixer, they come with a little joystick that will let you direct the audio around. Now to do this, it can get a little complicated, but it's not impossible. Just like before, we can run a cable from the digital stereo out to the digital stereo in. And this time, we only need to run one auxiliary output. So it can just be auxiliary 1 here, okay? And we come back into the setup menu, and we just set it up so that we have digital stereo left, let's say. But we set that up on 5 channels. So now what you'll have these 5 channels all set up to take signal from auxiliary 1 via the digital stereo left input, okay, or output. So this would be set up to be your auxiliary 1 output, and go to input channels 1 through 5, all the same setting: digital left, digital in left, digital in left, okay? But then you go into the individual channels here, and what you'll do is you'll have all of these stereo buses turned off, all right? And then you're going to pan them accordingly. This is going to be your left channel, pan all the way there. This will be your center channel, pan all the way to center. This is going to be your right front channel, and then this is going to be your right rear channel, and this is going to be your left rear channel. Now don't pay any attention that I had it on the monitor channel. You want to do all that on your inputs 1 through 16. I forgot that I was still on the monitor channel setting. So anyway, you set all your input channels like that, 1 through 16. You set your channels 1 through 5 up to do that. And of course, these are all set dead even. That way, this is going to be your virtual joystick. And it'll take some time, some practice, but what you'll do if you want that surround effect is you'll come up like this and then bring these up and then this up, slowly over time, and then bring it back down. Now, if it gets to where it's just too difficult to do, no problem. You can always go into your auto mix settings to the events list and adjust the mix manually. This will also allow you to do your flyby effect. Center channel, rear channels. So you go up, fade up slowly, and then bring the other ones up with it, and then they meet and then down really fast and then fade away. Real simple. And in this scenario, you can do your full surround effect, just the single mono effect coming out every channel for that big booming sound just by sending it to your surround effect bus and turning everything up all at once. You don't need to put in any kind of phasing. You don't need to put in any kind of delay. This is just how it's going to work, just like that. The disadvantages, the limitations is this kind of setup is only going to work on systems that can handle a digital surround feed. It's not going to play in a regular car stereo. It's not going to play over regular streaming audio. Only stuff that's set up for true digital surround. So you're looking at DVD audio, Blu-ray audio, super audio CDs, and digital streaming formats that are made to play in full digital surround. There's other limitations as well, because like we were talking about before with the bus system, how to properly blend the channels between left center and the right rears and the left rear, or anywhere in between. With a full proper surround mixer, you can put the sound pretty much anywhere you want it to be. And it's relatively easy to do. With the AW4416, it becomes a bit more complicated though. Remember when I was talking about that you have your auxiliaries, a standard 5.1 channel surround mix is 6 channels. You have 8 auxiliaries here to use altogether, and we're already using one for the surround channel effect, but now we can use another 6, say those 6, 2 through 7, to actually allow us to pan all the individual elements in our mix wherever we want to blend them. But what we got to do is we have to use our auxiliary outs in the back. We know you got 4 Omni outs, you have the digital stereo out, and you have the analog stereo out. And if you want to buy extra input cards, output cards, you can get any kind of setup you want for the back. Analog output, digital output, and have them rerouted back into analog or digital input systems on the back of the AW4416. And in that case, you would set it up so that you'd still have your 5 surround channels for the effects right here. But then you would have these channels going to your stem recording channels on your monitor side. So you just set them up that say this is going to go to 3, this one's going to go to 4, this one's going to go to 5, to 6, 7, and 8. And of course, in each one, the stereo buses are turned off. And if you want to have full effect in each one, you pan them accordingly. How this is going to end up working is your 10 tracks that you have to play with, you're going to turn the stereo buses off on each one of these too. And instead, they're going to be routed based on their auxiliaries. So you want your far right, you're going to turn this up to be where you want it to be. But let's say you want it also to blend over to your to the other side. This is actually going to be the far left. This will be far right. You don't want it to blend center. So now you're going to turn up that auxiliary a bit. So there's a bit more of a blend. Or you could actually set it up so that you go to your right rear, which is going to be over here, and blend there. Or anywhere in between. Let's say this is your kick drum. So your kick drum, you want it to come out in the center. So you're going to turn that up there. But let's say you want it to be a bit wider. You want it to come out through your left and right channels as well a bit. So you just turn those up a bit as well. All right? And the louder you get them, the wider they're going to get. Okay? And the same with your toms. If your toms are already pre-set up with a subgroup, a submix, left and right, and you want to do that, you just give them equal left and right spread on your auxiliaries. 0 and 0, right? Let's say, though, that you got your cymbals. Let's say the cymbals on the drum kit, you want them to have come out left and right in the front. And so you set them up like that. But you also want some rear channel. So give them some back channel as well. Just a little bit, right? And don't forget your low frequency channels for your toms or your kick, your bass, or whatever. You know what I mean? But this is where you're going to have to actually control the positioning, the panning of a mix for the surround sound in a discrete mode setting on the AW4416. It's going to have to be done via the auxiliaries, whether you do it physically on these channels or through the virtuals. Now, if you don't have extra room, say on the individual tracks here, you're going to have to use a different recorder. I'm not saying this here itself. I'm saying that the AW4416 will have to have the auxiliary sent out to a stem recorder, whether it's a DAW unit or another hard disk unit. That's something that's going to have at least 6 channels to plug into. And you'll just set it up the same, where you can have your joystick fader effect control right here on your input channels, but then your other auxiliaries are not going to come back into the input. They're just going to go straight out into the stem recorder. Now, if at all possible, you might be able to get, say, like a MIDI mixing controller, a little mixer board that has a MIDI output that's a controller for generally a DAW. And you might be able to just plug it right into the AW4416 and set them up so that the external mixer will operate your auxiliary controls 1 through 8. And that way you don't have to mess around with the individual auxiliaries in the AW itself. You could just set it up so that you turn on a channel, and then your external fader will control each of the auxiliary outputs, faders, right there through MIDI. Select another channel, do the same thing. Another channel, same thing, so forth, right? You might even be able to do something in the AW itself. I mean, the AW has an input and an output for the MIDI control. You might be able to loop something around, but I'm not too familiar with MIDI. I don't use it a lot. That might not be something you can do in the AW. It might cause some kind of feedback loop or whatever, digital feedback within the MIDI circuit that could do something screwy. Who knows? But anyway, this is what you're essentially limited to with working with the surround format in the AW4416. It's much simpler to use the matrix encoded surround, but the surround format of having discrete surround for every channel can give you a lot better audio options. It's just going to be a bigger hassle to deal with. So anyway, I hope this information was helpful for you guys. I hope anybody who wanted to actually do this is now able to take this information and utilize it. I'm going to be doing this on my remix and re-release of one of my previous albums. I'm going to make a commercially viable release for. And I might even later down the road make a special mix where it is a discrete channel, a discrete surround mix. Anyways, you guys have a good day. We'll talk to you later. Guys, take it easy. It's Brian F. Studios. Have a good one.